In today's video, I want to talk about budgeting, but not in the way that most people think of it. See, I think when most people hear the word budgeting, they think, oh no, I'm going to have to cut back on things I want in order to save money. But that's not what budgeting is. Budgeting is just spending money the way you want to spend it, but tracking that while you do it. Now, if you saw my last video, I went over how you could become a millionaire by saving $5 a day. And you might be thinking to yourself, okay, that's all well and good, but where am I going to get $5 every single day to save? I barely have enough money at the end of the month as it is, or maybe I have less money at the end of the month than I actually need. Well, the trick to solving that is budgeting. So how is it possible then that I can say budgeting is spending money on everything you want, and yet also say that budgeting can somehow get you to save money? Well, it's kind of a counterintuitive thing. Always throughout my entire life, I've been pretty good with money. But a couple years ago, about a year after I started working at a full-time job, I started tracking all of my expenses exactly. What I found was that over time, my expenses started going down, which was strange because, as far as I could tell, I wasn't doing anything differently. I still ate out whenever I wanted to. If I saw some new gadget and I was really excited about it, I would still go for it. And yet somehow, I was saving money. What I eventually realized is what budgeting let me do was spend money on things that actually gave me value and then eliminate everything that didn't. See, when I started budgeting, I just automatically stopped spending money on things that didn't actually bring me any happiness and instead spent the money on the things that did. Now, this phenomenon of people starting budgeting and then suddenly finding more money at the end of the month isn't unique to me. Lots of people have reported seeing this online, both on Reddit and in different forums, as well as people who just call into financial gurus like the Dave Ramsey Show. Now, obviously, budgeting is only part of the picture. If you don't have an income, it doesn't matter how hard you budget, you're not going to find more money all of a sudden. But budgeting is definitely a useful tool. The truth is, once I started budgeting, I didn't see any decline in the quality of my life, and yet I suddenly started having extra money every single month. So my goal is to show you how I did it, so maybe it can help you too. The best part is once you stop thinking about budgeting as cutting back and just think of it as tracking your expenses, it becomes really easy to do. If you really wanted to, you could probably budget for an entire month in about 15 minutes per month. And you know what they say, 15 minutes could save you hundreds of dollars in needless spending every single month. So if you're just getting started budgeting for the first time in your life, probably what you want to do is go with whatever option is the easiest. Now, by far, the easiest and cheapest option to start out with is Mint.com. Mint.com allows you to create a free account which you can link your credit card, bank accounts, debit cards to, and then will automatically track all the different transactions that go into and out of those accounts. It'll then try to automatically assign these to different categories for you, but you can modify those categories if you want to. So right here, I have a new Mint account set up, and the first thing it prompts you for is to link some kind of account. So for example, if you had a Chase credit card or maybe a Capital One credit card, you could link that right here, and then all those transactions would automatically get pulled into your Mint budget every single month. Once you actually get inside Mint, it'll give you some navigation right at the beginning, which we can kind of skip through because most of it isn't really that important. The most important section of Mint is going to be your budget section. Now, once you actually have all of your accounts listed, this might be auto-populated for you if you already have a bunch of transactions in your account. But if you don't, you can just create your budget like this. So for example, if I wanted to add a restaurants category, I could just search for an existing category, put in however much I want to put in each month, and save it. Now this will automatically track anytime I go to a restaurant, and this bar will slowly fill up until it gets to $100. Outside of the actual budgeting tab in Mint, there are a couple other useful features too. For example, I can track my spending over time, I can look at my spending in different categories, maybe by certain merchants if I go to one merchant a lot of the time, Chipotle. You can also use Mint to set up financial goals, but I haven't really used this feature much in the past. I think that it's easier to just track this by yourself outside of Mint. And then finally, there will be this transactions tab here once you actually link your bank account. And in here you can go in and you can modify transactions if they were maybe tagged to the wrong category or somehow a wrong amount is listed. One of the reasons Mint is so great for just getting started with budgeting is because it's so easy. You can get set up in a couple minutes and it doesn't really take any work from you each month. Mint will automatically bring in all your transactions for you, and then at the end of each month you can just review to see which categories were over. Now, if I was just getting started with budgeting, I would recommend using Mint for probably 2 to 3 months just to get kind of an average for how much you spend each month. And then as you go, you'll find that your budget gets more and more exact to how much you actually spend as long as you adjust the categories to match what you spend at the end of each month. The downside to Mint, however, is it's much more useful for looking back on what you've already spent as opposed to planning forward for what you're going to spend in the future. Once you've used Mint for a while and you kind of have an understanding for how much you spend each month, I would recommend moving on one step further and establishing a zero-based budget. Now, zero-based budgeting may sound a little weird or foreign if you haven't heard it before, but it's actually very simple. All it means is that whatever you bring in income each month, you have to track that same amount in one of the categories in your budget. So for example, if you bring in $1,000 in income and 500 of that goes to rent and then 400 of that goes to miscellaneous expenses, you still have $100 left over. Well, that has to be tracked in some category, so you need to add a savings category and then move that $100 into savings. This way, whatever goes out of your budget each month exactly matches what comes into your budget each month. This makes it really easy to track where every single dollar of your money is going. As useful as Mint is for tracking your transactions, it's not very good for zero-based budgeting. It's a little bit clunky and it can be kind of hard to adjust the categories when you actually want to track exactly how much you're spending. Two apps which I would recommend for zero-based budgeting are EveryDollar by Dave Ramsey and YNAB. EveryDollar has a free version which has both a mobile app and a web version. And basically for this app, you have to input every single transaction you make by yourself. This can be a good thing because it makes you have the discipline to actually track every time you spend something and might discourage you from making some of those small purchases. YNAB is a little bit more advanced, where it actually pulls in the transactions the same way that Mint does, but it lets you do zero-based budgeting the same way that EveryDollar does. The downside to YNAB is it's not free. It costs $83.99 a year for the full subscription, but you can get a 1-month free trial. Now, I haven't actually used YNAB in the past, but I have used EveryDollar, so I can walk through how to use that one. So when you first create an account on the site, they're going to ask you a lot of questions regarding the Dave Ramsey method. You can skip through all these if you don't want to deal with that. Now, once you actually get into the main EveryDollar site, you have the option to create a budget. So let's go ahead and create one. Let's say that you have 2 paychecks every month, each one for $1,000. EveryDollar breaks these up into different categories with subcategories within them. So for example, they have one for giving, one for saving, one for housing, and you can modify these as you want to. Now I'll fast forward and set up a sample budget. Okay, so I have set up here kind of a simplistic budget, but it works for just explaining how this works. So every single month I bring in $2,000, $1,000 from each paycheck. I immediately spend $1,000 on mortgage and rent, which includes all my utilities. The only other expenses I have for the month are gas for my car and grocery expenses. Which means in order to have a balanced budget, I have an extra $750 left over every single month. So I need to add that to a savings category in order for this to balance out. If this were only $700, the app would warn me I still have $50 left to budget, so it's not a zero-based budget. Now, because I'm using the free version of this app, I'd have to actually manually enter every time I bought something like groceries as a different item in the actual app. Now, this might seem like a lot of effort, but you have to think, if you're willing to spend money on something, you should probably also be willing to spend the extra 5 seconds it takes to enter that item into your budget app. So I think this is a fine trade-off. The most important thing to remember when setting up your budget is to actually enter what you think you're going to spend. Not what you want to spend, not what you wish that you were spending every month, what you're actually going to spend. Remember, the point of budgeting isn't to cut back on what you're spending. The point is to track what you're spending. And then once you track what you're spending, you'll just naturally find that you have more money at the end of the month. So to recap, the first thing that you need to do is go on mint.com and create an account. Once you have an account, track your expenses for 2 or 3 months just to figure out what your baseline budget is going to be. Once you have those numbers, create an account on either EveryDollar or YNAB, and then start zero-based budgeting. Then reap the benefits of enjoying more money suddenly appearing in your account at the end of each month. It's not magic, but it feels like magic when you actually start doing it. I myself, when I started zero-based budgeting, started saving almost $500 every single month. And I don't feel like I actually cut anything out of my life. I didn't lose any value by suddenly saving that money. I just started saving it because I became in control of my money. And you can do the same thing by just following the same steps that I outlined before. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like. And if you want to see more videos like this one, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you later.